Hey guys, it's Greg Jones for Engine Builder. We are here inside Pro Motor Engines in Mooresville, North Carolina, talking with Dennis Borem. And this right here is a top fuel Hemi engine, and it's our engine of the week.
Engine Builder's Engine of the Week is sponsored by Pengrade 1, L-Ring DOS Original, and NPW.
Dennis, thanks again. We just saw a TA2 engine on the dyno here a second ago, and now we are in what is specifically for top fuel building here. This room is specifically just for that. And you guys build these top fuel engines for Clay Millican's team. And this right here obviously is not a complete Hemi engine that he would be running, because you really don't send it to the team like that, right? You guys, obviously put it all together and make sure everything's fit right, but then the team is the one that's putting it in the car and putting it all together, right?
Yeah. First of all, the engine you saw a few minutes ago, or that we did, the TA2, you couldn't get further polar opposites than these two builds. Right.
Something spec versus.
This makes lots of horsepower. Different demands.
Sure.
As far as the engine build goes, to back up a little bit, this Rick Ware Racing, his background's in stock car racing and road racing, and we've done engines for Rick for many years.
Yeah.
And Rick talked about wanting to get into drag racing, and specifically a fuel team.
Yeah.
The last couple of years we talked, and when he decided he was going to go forward, he sat down and we talked about basically giving him support. So first of all, the engine builders for these, it's all those guys on that team, on Clay Millican's team.
Yeah.
Jim Oberhofer is the crew chief, and Jesse is his car chief, and they have a fantastic group here, which, matter of fact, Andrew's around here somewhere. He's working on this engine. He came over for the team.
Yeah.
They work on the road. The rebuilds happen between rounds. They bring them over here, and we do, I guess you would say, some of the heavy maintenance.
Yeah.
After these things run a number of races, another number of runs, the main lines get all out of whack, because they're making excess 10, 12,000 horsepower.
Oh, yeah.
And they basically, every run, they come apart at the track. So you go out there and do your burnout and run hopefully 3.7 seconds.
Right. And
you come back and tear it apart, pull the pistons out of it, check the bearings, and maybe put a sleeve or two in it. And they have a mountain of cylinder heads that are in their cabinets.
Yeah.
So at the track, constantly changing cylinder heads.
Yeah.
And working on them at the track. So when they come here, it's heavy maintenance. We'll check the cam line, the main line, at different intervals, the registers on the sleeves. We'll pull the sleeves out and send them over to CMM and the CNC shop and check everything out and remachine them. The engine itself, it's quite different from my background.
Yeah.
So there's a big learning curve.
Yeah.
Machine work, that's pretty much the same.
Sure.
Is what we do, and everything else. We do a lot of repair work and work for other folks anyway. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Dennis, obviously, like you said, you guys are doing a lot of machining and repair work, in between the weeks that these guys are actually racing. But let's talk about some of the components here. Obviously we got a billet Hemi block here. We got a couple of parts behind us.
Sure.
Walk us through what would actually be in this.
Yeah. So you've got that's exactly what you said. It's a billet block. There's a few different companies that make these blocks. Crankshafts, same thing. You had a couple of companies. Winberg and Bryant are the two, and Callie's are the companies that primarily that do these cranks.
Yep.
And these cranks have a life. Different teams have made them last longer. You might put a crank in and get 3 or 4 runs out of it, and it comes back for service and it's got a big crack in it.
Right.
So you might get 9 or 10 runs out of it, and it may run that long. But basically, the crankshafts, all the parts in these are very consumable.
Yes. You're not making it too long on the same components.
No, and you keep track of all your parts, and keep your processes the same.
Yeah.
Because the all the way down to Clay, he works on his reaction time. Everybody works on making it the same every time and being better.
Yeah.
You know, so that the things that Jimmo can do to the tune-up, he knows that he's got a good baseline with what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And he can basically tailor the weather and the engine and the clutch to the track and not have to worry about what somebody did inside the motor different from one time from before.
Right. So you mentioned a couple different crank companies that these guys might use. How about rods or pistons?
Same thing.
Yeah.
You know, Alan Johnson makes rods. Schumacher, I think. Bill Miller. Mm-hmm. There's several companies making connecting rods and pistons. Yeah. You know, Diamond and CP. Yeah. And the bigger companies are doing pistons. These pistons are very consumable. You know, our NASCAR piston runs quite a while, and it's probably 3 times the cost for a NASCAR piston, which is much smaller, but the machining processes and the time putting into building that piston, you know, because this thing has to have a great amount of material in it to, you know, follow the stresses and cylinder pressure on these things.
For sure, for sure. And then you were mentioning cylinder heads. It looks like that was a Alan Johnson Performance part as well. You know, billet head. How about some of the valve train that would be?
Yeah, so that Victory makes a good valve. You know, Exeldyne makes a good valve. Springs. You know, the big companies there with the springs, but the cylinder heads. There's a few other companies. Schumacher has a billet head. Yeah. And there's a few other folks that have had good cylinder heads.
Yeah. Now, in talking about the cylinder head, and again, you mentioned the heavy maintenance that you guys will do. A lot of that has to do with the cylinder head repair work and, you know, re-welding areas and then resurfacing and putting grooves back in. And
yes, like the blocks too. You'll torch a gasket and it'll usually blow it out. You know, it might blow out here. Obviously, we're thankful this is not, but it blows out a gasket. It'll just torch that. If it's not bad enough, we can bring it back here, pull the sleeves out, weld the deck, you know, prep it, weld it, recut the counterbore, and bring it back. At some point, you don't. You know, really the mains are really the worst part of these as far as the life of the block from what we see. You know, they really take a beating. At some point, you can repair the mains, put sleeves in them, and do different things there. But I couldn't tell you how many runs you can get out of this block. There's probably blocks that have 50 runs on them, 60 runs. But there is a life on these too, where it's just not worth fixing at some point.
Sure. Now, obviously, we got all the studs sitting here, which those are pretty heavy duty. You want to talk a little bit about exactly what you guys run in a top fuel setup?
Yeah, I mean, these are ARP makes a good stud. There's some other companies out there doing them. They take a really big beating because they really have a lot of clamping pressure on them to hold that head down. And a lot of things in these we're probably asking obviously more than what we should, but that's where things kind of evolve. We try to get better and go faster.
For sure. Yeah, so you know, anywhere from 10 to 12,000 horsepower out of this, and it's based on the 526 platform, and it's just shy of 500 cubic inches typically. Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. But Dennis, anything else about what you guys do on Clay's engines here that we kind of left out, or just anything else to add?
No, I think we try to be an extra set of eyes, and then at the racetrack, just go and help where we can. There's times between rounds that there's problems. You try to get as many runs as you can out of the short block, just for one to keep going forward. Keep the team in business, but be competitive too. So at some point you have to change out the short block. At Chicago a few weeks ago, Clay got the Wally. Won the whole deal. And that short block and engine had been there all weekend. In the very final round, that teardown before the final round, it didn't look so great. So the team pulled it out. Another short block went in. And matter of fact, I think this is the short block here because it ran.
Very cool.
Yeah, it ran the final round at Chicago, and then it went to Epping, and Epping/Bristol.
Yeah. So how many short blocks will a team show up with?
10.
Okay.
Usually it depends. You go to a race that's close, it might have seven or 8 in there.
Yeah.
But you go out west, you probably want to have 10 when you're out there.
Yeah. Wow. And then obviously these are running a supercharger. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how that might change what you guys do?
Yeah, I mean that's the crew chief as far as the supercharger. There's 2 or 3 of those that they swap to, because between rounds you're servicing them. Mm-hmm. So it's such a short time where John, who does the blowers, he's got one ready, so he puts it on. The other one he checks out.
Yeah.
First thing you want to do when you tear it down is find out how everything looks.
Yeah.
And you're going to be putting parts in it, but you want to see what the parts that came out of it, what's going on.
Right.
So you can get that information to the crew chief, and he kind of has to look at that on what he's going to do next.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. There's a lot going on in between rounds at a drag race of that caliber. It's pretty incredible to watch. But Dennis, we appreciate you walking us through this Top Fuel Hemi engine. Guys, we appreciate you watching this episode of Engine of the Week. Make sure you're checking out everything that Pro Motor Engines has going on. And as always, make sure you're checking out enginebuildermag.com for more engine content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.